We have Karen Howie, from the Inland Empire Water Agency, we've got Steve Eli. And from the Chino Planning Commission, we've got Kerry Cisneroz. Who are here from the Bay Area. We've got his nieces Susie and Jennifer's husband Mike. And of course we've got Al's son and wife Brandy. Oh, we're going to do the resolutions. Oh, we're getting up there. That's good. We'll also have from Chino Hills, we have Peter Rogers and Melissa Campari, and also Karen Howie from...
It's with great pleasure that I present him today with his certificate honoring him on his 90th birthday. I've also brought up the 3 councilmen with us as well.
Al McCombs grew up in Berkeley, California, and came... Whoa, we got some Berkeley fans! He came to Chino with his wife Gretchen in 1956 to purchase the Chino Champion newspaper.
I call that, I grew up there BS.
BS.
Before Savio.
Oh, okay, before Savio. He was 27 years old, and he had a bachelor's degree in journalism from Stanford, and he also had a master's degree in business from Harvard. He had worked in the newspaper business for several years, and he was hungry to run a newspaper of his own. The first issue he published was on October 1st, 1956, and in that issue, he increased the number of pages from 12 to 16. And in the 1990s, he made the newspaper available to every home, even non-subscribers. Before that, you had to pay for the paper. Suddenly, it was available to everybody because of Al. His decision increased publication for the paper at that time to 40,000 homes, more than double the standard publication. Al McCombs turned over management of the Chino Champion to Bruce Wood in 2006. That's when he said he was going to retire. I don't think he did, but he said he was going to retire. He remained on staff of the Champion as publisher emeritus, and he continued to write his witty weekly Roll Top Roundup column and was the editor of the commentary section as well. After 60 years of ownership, Al McCombs sold the Chino Champion in 2017. The Chino Champion has been the local paper of our city since 1887, when Richard Gerd founded the paper. Al was the publisher of the Chino Champion longer than any other. Nobody even comes close to 60 years. And he still continues to write his witty weekly column, Roll Top Roundup, which everybody looks forward to each week. And he also edits the commentary page. In addition, tidbits about Al. He served in the Navy Supply Corps from 1953 to 1956. He's been a member of the Chino Rotary Club since 1957, and he was president in the 80s. He was, hey, Rotary fan. At the time in 1957, he was the youngest member to have ever joined the Rotary Club. He was also on the Chino Unified School Board, and he was a member for 10 years, from 1969 to 1979, and he was president several times. And he's been involved with the YMCA, Chamber of Commerce, Chino Valley Historic Society, and much, much more. Today we gather to celebrate his milestone birthday, and from a man who's not only lived in Chino for 60 years, but a man who has been actively involved in all of our lives, one way or another. I have the pleasure of hearing Al tell stories of his past, and today we're going to talk a little bit to him so that you can hear some stories about his time in Chino. So Al, we're going to go to the very beginning, way back to 1957 when you purchased.
Well, that's not so far back.
No? Seems just like yesterday. So I would like to know, and I'm sure a lot of people would like to know, you came from Berkeley. It was a big city of, you said, nearly 80,000 people in 1957.
It was a college town.
Big, that's a lot in 1957. And you chose a newspaper in Chino that had a population of 6,000. What brought you here?
I'd hoped to get a small paper that I could handle at that stage of the game. And so when you want to buy a paper, you go to a newspaper broker. There was one in Riverside who had the Champion listed. And there weren't too many on the market back then. I'd just gotten out of the Navy. And so he had this one listed. Someone else had wanted to buy it, but then that deal fell through. So the broker still had the listing, so he had to get rid of it while he still had the listing. So we came by and it was available. He brought us out to Chino on one of the hottest days of the year. And didn't have air conditioning back then, but I remember the heat just coming up out of the pavement. So we looked over at Chino, and it was pretty much a cow town back then, but there were signs that things were going to be okay. I think the ShopRite market had started up, and that was the one big market in town. And Diamond Bar, they'd just broken ground on Diamond Bar, and I thought, well, that'll come this way. So we accepted the price of it there, and I've been here ever since.
And when you first came, you told me you stayed at the little motel just across the street.
Yeah, it's still there.
Still there?
Yeah.
And Gretchen was pregnant with Bill.
Yeah.
And it was hot.
It was hot.
And not a lot for her to do. And so what did you do for her?
Well, we rented a TV set. So it was right about the time of the World Series back then. She wanted to watch that. She was into baseball. And we didn't want to show our faces around before the deal went through. People would wonder, well, who are you? You know. And so we were kind of holed up there. And then as soon as I bought the paper, I'd spend 7 days a week on it practically for a little while. And she was kind of alone until we got a house. But that's where we were.
That's where you were?
Yeah.
So you've seen Chino change a lot.
Oh, quite a bit. I didn't even plan to stay here because I thought, well, I'd done something bigger, you know, you get in the newspaper business, and I thought, well, getting bigger papers. I grew older, well, the town grew, the paper grew, I didn't have to go anywhere. I just stayed here.
Stayed here.
Yep.
So you said when you came, Chino was a cow town, and it definitely became the dairy capital. It became
That's
very
right.
large.
Yeah.
So tell us what you saw when you first came, from the time it was 1957 to the big boom in about the 80s and 90s, and how it faded.
Faded.
Well, the dairy industry. The
Oh,
dairy
dairy.
industry faded.
Okay.
Not your memory,
Well,
the dairy industry.
The dairy industry was just starting to really move over here about the same time. And Chino was known as a prison town back then. And what made us happy was able to promote it as a dairy town instead. And the reputation of the community improved quite a bit by being known as the largest dairy capital in the world, which it was at that time. There was more dairies in a concentrated area than anywhere else in the world. And so that brought success to Chino. Then the freeway came through, and with it, all the progress it brought over from the metropolitan area. And the town grew and kept growing. And then we now are 2 cities here, so things have changed quite a bit.
Definitely.
There was just 10,000 people in the whole area when I first came here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you would say the progress pushed out the dairy industry?
Dairy industry, there's various factors. The type of thing there, dairies were on small ground. Their land got very valuable. The dairymen were getting older. The kid didn't want to put a lot of money back into smaller areas, and so they moved elsewhere. And the dairymen, of course, made money again selling their land. They probably made more money off land sales than they did off cows. Same as happened in Artesia and Bellflower when they came here. So it was a repeat cycle for the dairymen. Now I live among those retired dairymen over at Inland Christian Home. There are all kinds of stories about the old days of dairy in Holland and so forth.
That's great. So the progress really came to Chino in 1971 when the 60 freeway came through. With the opening of the 60 freeway was the opening of the gateway to everyone easily accessing Chino. Before then, there really wasn't an easy way to get here.
Chino wasn't on the road to anywhere particularly.
So tell us, Al, about the 60 freeway and your involvement in the planning of it.
Well, back in the 60s, the Pomona Freeway started out way over in San Gabriel Valley, and they set up a Pomona Freeway Association. And because Chino knew it was coming this way and was particular about where it was going to go, we jumped through the Chamber of Commerce and everything, the community, we jumped in on that, and we're quite active. At each stage, the Pomona Freeway Association lobbied each section as we went along, and when it came here, of course, they lobbied here. So we were very active in that. Well, the city of Chino didn't want it to go where it is. They felt it would split the community, future community, and everything. So they said either up around Phillips or down around Schaefer. And the state said, and because Pomona and Ontario had already decided where it was going to go. So we found out it was going straight through. Okay, well, what can we do about it then? We thought, well, if they submerge it, it won't cut the community so badly. So said we're going after, well, the city engineer was supposed to take over that and everything. He didn't believe they could change the state's mind at all. But the city administrator, who is now a city manager, city administrator and I got together, and I knew the right people through newspaper work because the head of the State Highway Commission at that time was the publisher of the San Bernardino Sun, and he was in a power battle with the state highway engineer about who was going to say what where. And he decided his commission could say whether it was up or down, not only where, but how built. The state highway engineer said, no, that's my job. And so the chairman of the board was looking for a good case, I guess, and we happened along at the right time, and so we won our case. We got it submerged, and that's why it's where it is today.
And I don't know if you guys even notice that. When you're driving on the 60 freeway and you come over that hill and down through Diamond Bar and you get to Chino, look, and you'll see the freeway goes down below where the city of Chino is. You have to actually look up to see the houses, and that was his doing to keep the freeway. Whoa, yes, it's amazing. I asked him, what should they do with all of the dirt? And he said, pushed it to Ontario.
Go out there, it's raised. Well, now they're having to come along and raise the bridges because they didn't make it deep enough.
So, Paul, I don't want to cut you off. Anything else on
No, that's all right.
Okay, so politics have always played a big part in the newspaper industry. There's always a story there. There's always a political advertisement to be had. And so being a newspaper man, you mostly have to be impartial because you're a newspaper and you're printing stories. But there was one such person that Al felt so strongly about that it didn't matter to him, that he went and supported this person, and that was Ruben S. Ayala.
That's right.
So tell me about your relationship with Ruben and how you assisted him.
Well, I forget exactly how it started, but I saw him as a guy who wanted something for the community too. He got very active in the parks program. Well, this community just wouldn't pass a bond issue for parks. Just turned them down. But Ruben had to set up a citizens committee and everything. I was impressed by what he was doing, and I felt he'd be real good for the community. And in supporting him, particularly when he wanted to be mayor, first I supported him on the council, and I had to buck the old-time Rotarians who were in favor of somebody else, but we stuck it out, and I outlasted them.
And he won.
Ruben won. Yeah, and he went on from there to county supervisor and then the state senate, and he made history in getting elected to the state senate, and he was a very good representative for this area. He brought a lot of good things to this area.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Was there any backlash for supporting him? I mean, especially, it was still kind of a small town at that time. Did you personally, or did the newspaper have any backlash for supporting the candidate?
Oh, yeah, there are people who weren't happy with it. Now it doesn't work, huh?
Now his is working. Maybe these two are having a relationship issue.
They're trying to shut me up. Yeah, well, you know, it wasn't the only thing we had backlashes. So that's part of the game. I mean, part of the business I'm in. And you criticize people, they're not going to be very happy about it. And on the other hand, we're in a position to support people and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's been a great career.
Well, and you've never been a person who's been afraid to hold back your opinion. You know, if you have an opinion, he's going to share it. If you like it, great. If you don't,
Yeah, when I
And that's
first
what's
came here, there's some school board members that weren't very happy with me and called me right to my face and said I just went behind the ears and they were waiting until they did me in. Well, I'm here, they're not.
A funny tidbit story that he told me was there was a rule back then that if you were part of the school board, your spouse could not be serving within the same
That's
district.
right, even if she was hired before I got on the board. So Superintendent Jerry Lytle helped get her job up in Upland where she was for about 8 years. Very happy up there, but then the ruling was changed. That it was violating her rights not to be able to be here. And she came back and worked at fundamental school when it was made there. So she had a very nice career in both school districts.
And that's just shows great commitment from your wife. I mean, he was
Yes.
always there for you,
And she
willing to go to another city, you know, so that you could be on the school board.
she had no interest in the newspaper, really. We used her as a proofreader. She was very good at that. But other than that, she stuck with her school interests, and that's one reason I ran for the board, so we'd have something, common interest.
So you've seen a lot of different things happen, clearly, over the 60 years that you've been here. So I thought we would just hit on a few topics.
Wow.
Okay?
Yes.
So let's go over a few of these, and you tell me what you remember. And these are just some of the big things I picked up in Chino. Okay. So this is something that I know everybody knows about. Kevin Cooper escapes Chino prison.
You know, that was big for the community, made us nationwide, doing it again. But, yeah.
So how did that affect the reporting? Did you have more stories to write?
Well, no, we reported on them. Not really.
Were you at the time sensing the fear within the community?
Well, fear, and yeah, there was fear here. And that's one thing. Ruben Ayala got in there and shook up the prison system, made them improve their security and put up electrified defense and everything, and the escapes dropped off quite noticeably.
Literally.
Yeah.
if they hit that electric fence, they're not going to go far.
Yeah.
Tell me about the incorporation of Chino Hills.
Corporation of Chino Hills. Well, Chino, there was some talk about whether they should come into Chino or not, but there was a community of self-interest up there that wanted to go their own way, so we went along with that.
It's working.
Yeah, of course, the Champion covered both areas as Chino. Well, when Chino Hills came in, we said, well, how can we make darn sure that they consider us their newspaper too? We took the position whichever the people wanted in Chino Hills to go. But then we wanted them to make sure that the Champion was their newspaper too, so we started the Chino Hills News Champion section. So. And then we bought the first business license in Chino Hills.
Did you? Something huge that really happened that affected the Chino Champion directly was in the 70s. He had just purchased the old post office building and had just redone it. It was really nice. And because of some conflict within the city, the Champion office was firebombed. And so tell us about the firebombing of the office.
Well, that's because I was on the school board and we were having an expulsion hearing, and it was during the period, the Chicano period, the La Raza, everything, and that was at the seat of all the problems at the high school where a student was expelled and he wanted a public hearing, so we held a public hearing. I tried to get the board members to have a bigger place so everybody could get in, and they wouldn't do it. So we had half the people out around the streets and everything, and a couple of hoods came by, and two of us had our office firebombed. So the fire department, our one-engine fire department, or two engines, I guess, was down at the other office, which was down at 7th D here, when mine was hit, and pretty well gutted our place. But thanks, I hate to say it, but thanks to the lack of environmental regulations, we were back operating within about 3 months instead of 3 years.
So when if the place was gutted and burned out, you obviously couldn't operate there. Where did you go?
We found a place over here right across the street to rent for that time. And back then, our production had changed. We were going to offset printing. And all our typesetting was done by a lady who was a secretary who, I think she's here, or one of them is. And it was done out of our office anyway. And our printing was all done out of town on offset presses. So we got along pretty good. And we didn't miss a beat because this happened on press night. So the paper was already out, and we wheeled them out back of the building so they were safe, and got them out in time. So we didn't miss any issues. But you know, it was quite an experience. Actually allowed us to go in and correct all the design errors we made in building the place in the first place. So that was a plus. And we had all used furniture. We just went out and bought more. So,
yeah. So it just was proof that nothing was stopping the Champion.
Thanks to Dennis Pine's dad's company, we got some money off that thing. So.
Insurance company, Pine. Yeah, let's hear for the Pines. That's good. Okay. Are there any other tidbits you would want to share about? Otherwise, we'll take questions.
Oh, I just shouldn't take questions. We'd be here all night.
All right. If anybody has a quick question, you raise your hand. I'm happy to come run out there to you.
When did you start the roundup?
Roll Top Roundup.
Roll Top Roundup.
Tell us the history
Shortly
of the Roll
after
Top.
I got here, they already had a column called the Roundup. Well, I had a roll top desk. So I put the two together. Unfortunately, that beautiful roll-top desk perished in the fire, so I didn't have it. But I think its history probably went back quite a way with the champion. Yeah.
And you kept the name.
Kept the name,
Yep.
yeah.
Yes?
I remember growing up that you used to have a column where you talk about people having barbecues in the backyard, or going on vacation, or having a birthday party. Whatever happened to that?
Well,
Too many people.
people got a little particular about us printing that they were going on vacation. I remember we figured the city manager was a public figure. If he's going on vacation, we'd print it. Oh boy, was he mad. But, so some of the people think, yeah, I used to be able to describe a bride's gown and all those fancy French words they used, and don't do that anymore, or say what attendants wore. Birthday parties, went to Johnny's birthday party, we used to print all that. You don't have that anymore, but you can still find a lot of personal stuff. We have people items in there. They just scattered around.
But the old papers definitely had personal information. I'm surprised when I see they would print addresses. Susie had a birthday party at such and such
Oh, yeah.
Lincoln Avenue at this time, and they had punch, and she wore a pink dress. It had every detail, but the population was much smaller then as
Yeah,
well.
we also printed the names of people arrested for drunk driving.
Yes.
There you go.
Well, we stopped doing that because some of them got freed. I mean, they were arrested for that, but there was no follow-up. We didn't think that was fair, so.
That was a good marketing tool.
It was a good market. In fact, I had one guy who was fairly prominent in town, and oh, is he mad at me? And he came up a few years later and thanked me, because he said he helped straighten him out.
Another quick story that I wanted to share about Al real quick that I didn't get to is he was such a newspaper reporter that he wanted to be right on the story as soon as it happened, that he would carry a scanner around with him.
Oh, yeah.
Had it at his house, listened to the scanner. When he heard something, he'd run. He also had a couple of informants, I guess we'll call them, that would call him, ambulance drivers and such, that would call and tell him when something was happening for him to be able to get there quickly.
Yes, the ambulance people, I had to deal with them. They'd give me a call when they got a call. So sometimes I got there before the rest did too.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was a siren chaser.
Literally. Do we have a question in the back? Yes. In the blue shirt? Yes.
Al, thank you very much for all your words of wisdom all these years. What advice, simple advice, do you give to youth of today?
Boy, what advice their parents give them. One thing I think about, what's important in life? And that, to me, it's learning good decision making. And I think that's hard for kids because they don't have the history. That's why I've become a history buff, and the longer I live, the more history means to me, because what you learn from history. But good decision making is so important, and you look at the young people today and those that did make good decisions, and often with the help of their parents. My first decision was the best I ever made, and that was the parents I decided to have. And I was very fortunate.
We went. Okay. Happy birthday, Al, from David Allen.
And everything, and it helped quite a bit. But if you look at decision making, I think that's real important.
Yeah. And work hard.
Yeah, hard work, but that those that I see that have gotten ahead have decided that's what they wanted to do and have done it. And fortunately, I knew pretty early what I wanted to do. My father was in a related business, press clipping business, which people say, well, what was that? Well, I compare it today with the browser, being a browser. Before you have the internet, how did people learn what was going on? Well, that's because they could subscribe to a clipping bureau, which in turn subscribed to all the newspapers and then clipped out clippings of the interest of their customers.
Well, Al, happy birthday. You've lived 90 amazing years. I hope you live 90 more, just as well as said today. You've been an absolute amazing supporter of the city of Chino and the Chino Valley. Your history knowledge is phenomenal, and we just wish you all the best. Happy birthday.
Hey Al, Dee Dee and I are happy we can join you on this day.
I just want to wish Mr. McCombs the best 90th birthday that he had. I've known him for many years, so happy birthday once again.
Okay. Happy birthday, Al, from David Allen.
All right, hey Al, congratulations on 90 years. It's so great to see you, and I hope you had a great birthday, and we are blessed to have had you in the Chino Valley for all these years.
Happy birthday, boss. I love you.
Happy birthday, Al McCombs. I just wanted to thank you personally for inviting me to breakfast all the time and for passing on all the history and the photographs and everything else so that I can continue on the history of Chino. I appreciate it. It's fun for me, and thank you. So happy 90th birthday, Chino.